So as I put up on my bubble just over 24 hours ago, hi, hello, just over 24 hours ago, I'm going to talk about healing our inner child. And oh my goodness, what a huge subject that is to try and cover in the hour that we're allowed before we go off air. Hi, hello, lovely to see you. Thank you for coming along. Thank you, lovely to see you. Thanks for popping by. Yeah, I'm just going to give it a few more minutes until everyone that would like to join has managed to join, and then I'm going to start. And I can see that people are asking to be in this live video, and I think what I want to say, I'll say this while I'm waiting, and then I'll try to remember to say it again at the end. One of the things that I want to offer is that we do some live streams in which people join, and I'm going to try and set up that in a safer way as I know how. And by safe I mean I know the kind of things I might ask you and talk to you about and ask you to think about and consider, and I would like you to direct message me so that I can check out with you that those things are okay, and really make sure that we're both on the same page before I actually invite you into a live video, because my responsibility is to make sure I take care of you. So a number of people are asking if they can join in live, and I want to do that separately. I may well make the next live stream or the one after that a live stream in which people can join live. And hello, thank you for coming along, thanks for joining. I'll just wait a couple more minutes and say these things while we're waiting, and then I'll move into talking about healing our inner child. So I was really just saying that people are asking to join live, and what I have decided about that is that I would really like to ensure that we have a chance to talk a little through direct messaging before you actually come and have a live stream with me. I'm very, very happy to do that, and in fact I think that would be an incredibly helpful thing to do, both for the person in live stream with me, but also for everybody watching. But there's a lot to that, and all I'm saying is direct message me with the request. Tell me what you'd like to talk about. We will to and fro just a little before we go ahead, and then we will do a live stream. Yeah, and someone was sort of acknowledging that it maybe looked as if you needed to press join in order to just join the live stream. No, you can just come in. But when you ask to join, what it means is if I clicked on you and said yes, we would be split screen and we would be talking live to each other in a live stream. So that's what I'm talking about. If anybody would like to do that, please direct message me, let me know. We will have a bit of a conversation and a dialogue about that, and then we'll go ahead and do it. And we will advertise it and let people know that's what we're going to do. Okay, so I think, because I'm so mindful of the way that we ran out of time last time, I want to say that if we run out of time, then I shall simply click back in. So please don't disappear and decide that is the opportunity gone and over. If we go over time, and I'm going to try not to, but if we go over time, don't disappear, hang on in there, and yeah, please don't be embarrassed. Golly, I'm embarrassed and I'm talking to the camera. This is new for me too, so please don't be embarrassed, honestly. Honestly, do not be embarrassed. Let's all chill. Let's not do that to each other. Let's just chill and be relaxed and easy with each other. the main thing is you're here, and I thank you for turning up. So that's a little bit about coming in split screen in a live stream with me, and I think I've covered that. And I'll try and talk about it again on my bubble and just advertise that again. But let's move on to talking about the inner child. Now, I need to say that when I started out on my psychotherapy training, I trained as a psychodynamic psychotherapist, which means Freud, Jung, Winnicott, all the analytical stuff. And I started out with my practice understanding things in that sort of way. And very gradually over the years, particularly since I've been on a spiritual journey, and I've become a spiritual seeker, and reading lots, listening lots, thinking lots, meditating lots, I've shifted to call myself instead a holistic psychotherapist, because I see psychotherapy and healing and the way the universe works very differently from the way that I saw it when I began my training. And I've since become a Reiki master too, so I'm an energy healer, and I think in terms of energy. I think in terms of energy. I think in terms of understanding the universe at the quantum level as being a field of intelligent, compassionate consciousness, energy, from which everything emanates, which holds everything, from which everything comes, and to which everything returns. And indigenous people have believed and known that for thousands and thousands of years. And we've become very mechanistic in the West, and we've forgotten all that stuff until recently, because recently science has started to catch up. Science has started to understand at the quantum level everything is connected, everything is one, that there is a field of energy through which thoughts or knowing pass in real time at the same time. There is no delay. So telepathy works like that. We know something in one place and someone else knows it in another, and they might be on the other side of the globe. So we exist in a field of vibrational energy, and science is catching up. That is how energy healing works, it's how telepathy works, and there are some wonderful scientific minds, one of which would be Rupert Sheldrake, who asks interesting questions like, how does your dog know that you're setting out for home when it's not a predictable time? How does your dog know that? Well, that exists in the field of energy, and the dog is tuned in. So the dog knows that. He explores interesting things like the phenomenon where we know when we're being stared at from behind. Now, science knows that happens, but it can't explain why. What is that? What is that you feel someone looking at you from behind? It's a common phenomenon. I bet you all have experienced that. And he would say that consciousness exists outside of the body, and that when we go up to something, we're actually sending our consciousness out and bringing it back, so that consciousness, our consciousness, within the field of consciousness that we all exist in, moves and is dynamic. So then, if we go to the question, what is our inner child? I'm going to talk about that today from that point of view. I could talk about it in terms of the unconscious. I could talk about it in terms of where in our neural pathways it exists. I could talk about memory and the hippocampus. I could do all that stuff, because that's all true as well. But today I'm going to talk about energy. and who we are, and think about our inner child in those terms. And I want to do that because I would like to offer a different sort of view about the inner child, than is maybe general and common. And it's this, that here's the thing. So much is talked and written about the inner child being lost, damaged, confused, broken, needing our help, needing our support, needing our understanding. And from that point of view, we're taught to see our inner child as a victim, and as a victim desperately in need of our saving our inner child. We're taught that our inner child needs us to save him. And so we are encouraged to look in the mirror and tell our inner child how much we love her or him. I'm going to say it because it's just easier, and it energetically makes more sense. So we are encouraged to look in the mirror and tell our inner child how much we love it, to tell our inner child it's safe now, to speak affirmations to our inner child, telling it that it's strong and it's wonderful and it can do anything. And that's the way we're encouraged to think about our inner child very often. But if we go to other modalities, and if we go to other healing modalities, something else makes greater sense to me, and it's this. When we are born, when we leave the field of energy which holds us all, and we take form and we are born, we come from that field of energy knowing who and what we are. And if anybody has watched a newborn baby, you will see a being who is joyful, fearless, acts from the heart, is open-hearted and feels fully. And you'll also see a little being that often stares out apparently into space, sometimes even just above your head, a bit like a cat or a dog will, or just around you, not necessarily into your face, often into your face, but also sees the energy around you. So a baby sees auras. A baby sees far more than we gradually cease to be able to see as the world takes over and we forget who we are. And I want to suggest that the state in which that baby enters the world is what I would call our inner child. It is our essence. It is our unique soul signature, fearless, joyful, loving, free. And I would say that is who our inner child is. So what happens? What happens? What happens to us? What happens to us that we would then start to talk about needing to heal our inner child? Well, the world gets involved, and living a human life is many things, but it's hard work. It's hard work living a human life. And sometimes, for some of us, it is so hard that we really do start to forget who we are. We really start to believe what the world appears to be showing us. we hit a state of amnesia and we forget where we come from. We forget who we were before we took form. And we become traumatized. Trauma isn't all about, or always about, a crisis, a catastrophe, something that scares or horrifies us. It's often a drip, drip, drip of disappointment or abandonment or intrusion or being let down in some way. The two major ways that we are traumatized is either a sense of abandonment, and a sense of abandonment can simply be a parent going into hospital, or a parent becoming depressed, or a parent not quite understanding what it is we're feeling or needing. That brings a sense of emotional abandonment. Sometimes it's intrusion, that's the other one. So intrusion can mean anything from the most horrific abuse to a parent who is so full of their own needs or their own trauma or sadness that they use us to tell us about it, talk to us about it, use us to soothe themselves, and therefore intrude on our psyche. And when I say this, I'm not meaning to allocate any blame at all, because we do the best we can with what we've got, with where we are and with what we know at any one point. So there is no issue of blame here. But those things make the world feel unsafe. And in indigenous traditions, and certainly in shamanic work, the inner child is seen quite differently. The inner child is the keeper. The inner child is the keeper of our truth. And I would say, as a psychotherapist, that I see our inner child that way. I don't see our inner child as being a victim or weak. I see our inner child as the part that when we are traumatized or in trouble, the mind, consciousness, splits off and holds elsewhere. We can talk about neuroscience and say that it's split off into circuits which are unavailable to memory, or we can talk about energy, in which our inner child energetically leaves our own body for a while. So when you work with trauma, and especially abuse, you will so often hear the survivor of that abuse describe to you how, when it was happening as a child, they found themselves looking on and watching from a distance. So people will talk about abuse happening, but they are on the top of a wardrobe watching. Or they will talk about being terribly frightened, terrified or hurt, and they are on the ceiling watching. And we all know this. People who work with trauma, therapists who work with trauma, know that that's reported again and again and again. Can the science explain it? No. Is it sufficient just to say that trauma means that our thinking, feeling, memory, sensation is all broken up so that we can somehow imagine that we're looking on? No, because it's so accurate. There is an energetic part of us that actually is looking on. And that part leaves our physical body to protect and keep intact our inner child. Our inner child separates off in order to protect all that is necessary for us to be and retrieve the powerful, intact, whole being that we were born as and born to be. So I see our inner child not as a victim, but as the heroic part of us that carries on surviving and waits for us to be ready for it to come back. And I base that on lots of recent research into neuroscience and also on other modalities of healing and understanding the psyche energetically, rather than in a purely neurological way. So that for me is our inner child. And so you can see, can't you, that it isn't our inner child that's the victim. It is that we, without that part that's split off to keep safe, we feel bereft. We feel weak. We feel frightened. We feel incomplete. And we walk through the world knowing that part of us is missing. We talk about a void. We talk about an empty space. Our inner child. When we are without that part, I've just been asked, how do we reclaim our inner child's strength? I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. I just wanted first to talk about how I understand our inner child, and the fact that our inner child is the part that splits off and stays safe for us. It is not a victim. It is not weak. It is absolutely the opposite of that. I described in a previous live stream how I had done a journey with someone a few weeks ago in which they set out to find and reclaim their inner child. And they expected to see exactly what most of us imagine, a child curled up in a corner, sobbing, frightened, in tears, unable to face the world, because that's how we feel that our child must be. Our inner child must be that way because that's how we feel. And actually, when she got there, when she got into the place where, in her unconscious mind, she was going to meet her inner child, what she found was a little dragon. And it was a little dragon bouncing around energetically, playful, free, feisty, breathing fire, absolutely fearless. And it was the dragon that invited her to climb on its back and fly off with it. That is the inner child. The dragon is the inner child. Because we feel so weak and frightened and ill-equipped without that part, we project that feeling out onto what we imagine is our inner child, and we think that must be the same, because we have no concept of what that inner child offers us. But what it does offer us is completely different. It offers us our strength, our creativity, our fun, our play, our courage, our intuition, our connection to the field of energy of which we are all a part. So, can you communicate with your inner child? Is it communicating with you? How does it come back? How do we do all that? What does healing mean? When we talk about healing our inner child, what does that mean? Well, healing equals integration. What does integration mean? Integration means bringing the split off bits back together. Healing is bringing the split off bits back together. That's healing. It is as huge and as simple as that. It starts with realizing that we've got a bit missing, and that we have a concept of what that missing bit is. That bit that's split off in order to stay safe for us is the bit that will complete us. It is the bit that will restore in us the open-hearted bravery, fun, love of life, up for the adventure with which we came into the world. That's the bit that looks on from the top of the wardrobe or from the ceiling. It doesn't look on because it's frightened. It looks on because it's keeping itself safe to come back to make us whole again, so that we can carry on with this adventure and journey that we were up for at the beginning. How do we do that? How do we do that? How do we connect with our inner child? Someone has said, yeah, so every time I'm strong, joyful, brave, I'm integrating it. Yes, yes, yes. But I would put it differently. You are allowing it back. I would say that every time you feel that sense within you that you are standing in your own power, you are allowing your inner child back. There's something that we therapists say, which is that our psyche always knows when we're ready to heal, always. And it is at that point that we are really squeezed and pushed hard, usually through some kind of painful experience or difficult experience, which opens us again. It opens us again to allowing our inner child back in. Because it's only with the wholeness that comes from allowing our inner child back in that we can grow out of that crisis, drama, painful experience, whatever it is. We always grow through pain, and it is always that kind of painful growth that opens us to our inner child coming back in again. But there are other ways that we can connect to our inner child. Our inner child speaks to us very frequently. It hasn't gone somewhere. It's close by all the time. It's close by, coming in and out all the time. And it speaks to us through our intuition. Now, we know when it's the inner child. We know when it's our intuition, because there is a sense of rightness. There is a sense of peace and calm, and a deep knowing that the message we are getting is right. There is a difference between fear, anxiety, that we can think is intuition. We can think, oh, I'm being warned against that. But fear doesn't feel the same in the body. Fear is zingy and an electric shock. Whereas intuition is, oh yes, of course, I'm listening, of course. So our inner child speaks to us as our intuition all the time. It speaks to us also bodily. So we all have energetically areas where we can feel that we are in contact with our inner child. The reason my hands are here is because this is where I feel my inner child. If I am worried, or I'm scared, or I am churned up about something, I will put my hands here, and I will allow my inner child to speak to me, and speak to me energetically. And the kind of things energetically that my inner child always says is things like, in this moment, you are safe. In this moment, nothing bad is happening. In this moment, all is well. And I know it's my inner child because I feel the calm. I feel that part of me returning. I feel that part of me returning. And sometimes I want to laugh out loud. Or sometimes I will want to get up and do something energetic, like jump around or dance or sing or whatever. I feel the playfulness come back. I feel the strength come back. I feel the wholeness in me. And so even though the world may tell us other things, the inner child is the part that knows. The inner child is the part that is never, ever separated from our higher self and the field of energy from which we all have our existence, and from which we flow into form, and from which we flow back, to which we flow back out of form, and in which everything exists. So I would say our inner child is our link with the field of energy and our higher self. We call that field many different things. Indigenous people would call that field the Great Spirit. Some might call it all that is. Some might call it God. Some might call it Source. Some might simply call it Spirit. It is a field of energy that science is gradually coming to realise everything is a part of. And wave and particle theory makes so much sense of the way that we can exist in potential, then we can come into form and become vibrating particles of energy, and we can go back to form, we can go back to the field again. And within that field is all knowledge and all that exists, past, present and future. And our inner child is forever in contact with that. And so what's left? Oh, that's lovely. What a lovely comment. Listening to you makes me realise I'm on the right path then. It brings me peace to know that. Thank you so much. Well, blessing to your journey. Go you. Go you. And if we embrace the truth that our inner child holds, and we embrace the strength and the courage and the wisdom, because although we call it an inner child, and we call it a child, of course, we call it a child only because that's the form that it took when it entered this time-space reality we call Earth. That's the form it took, and so we think of it as a child. But of course it came out of infinite intelligence and wisdom, and it goes back to infinite intelligence and wisdom, and that is what it is in connection with all the time. That's what it is connected to the whole time. So although we visualise it as a child or a baby, actually in reality that isn't what it is at all. And again, an interesting question, because it is forever innocent. And I suppose, what do we mean by innocent? What do we mean by innocent? And yes, somebody's saying children are so wise. Innocent in that it carries the vibration of the loving and compassionate, all-knowing field of energy from which it has emanated. In that sense, innocent, because the degree of love and compassion that is in that field of energy is so great that we can't put it into words. But we do know from so many near-death experiences and reports of what happens immediately after death, we do know that souls going back to that field of energy experience the most incredible sense of being surrounded by love and compassion, so great that it is, again, it's beyond words. It's beyond words to describe that. And untarnished by the world. Untarnished by the world. I want to think about that word untarnished, because I want to think about, why do we come? Does the world tarnish us? I know what you mean. I know what you mean when you say that. Does the world tarnish us? Or does it rather grow us through the challenge of finding our way back to remembering who we really are? Might that be how we come? Why we come? In order to face the adventure of a lifetime, which is facing the challenge of living through experiences which will grow us in wisdom and compassion and understanding, which we then take back to the field of energy after. Tarnish goes away by polishing. And what would be the polishing? When you say that, what would it be that you would be thinking of in terms of polishing? What is it that polishes? What is it that polishes? Because it's a fascinating way to put it. Tarnishing goes away by polishing. Or here's another way that I might think about it. Tarnishing is perception. Tarnishing, we perceive. We perceive. Does our inner child see anything as tarnished? No. Because our inner child knows that we are part of that field of energy, which doesn't see anything as tarnished, but simply work in progress, growing, learning. So I think the world perceives tarnished. I think our inner child sees simply the perfection of what really is. I think our inner child sees only perfection and is celebrating this lifetime's journey that we have willingly come for in order to face challenges that will enable us to grow. So, I'm watching the clock. I'm watching the clock because the last thing I want to do is to run out of time like we did before. So I just want to sum up again. So how do we get in touch with our inner child? By listening to our intuition, or by bodily connection, by sitting in stillness and meditating and listening, by employing methods from other healing modalities, which I can talk about more another time if you'd like me to do that, But our inner child is always available. And healing equals the permanent integration of our inner child back into our energy field so that we feel complete. And at that point we feel our own power. We find that we're standing in our own power. We have a sense of certainty, we have a sense of joy, we have a sense of playfulness and creativity, and we are brave. We're brave because when our inner child rejoins us, we remember who we are. We don't think small and fearfully anymore. We remember who we are, because our inner child never forgets. Never forgets. Our inner child is that part of us that comes down the birth canal still connected to the field of energy from which it has just come. And when we experience trauma, in order to protect that vital soul signature, in order to protect our essence, our inner child will split off for a while energetically and come back when it's safe to do so. It never abandons us. It's not about being abandoned. It is always there available. But it is the part of us that it is our unique essence and can never be broken, can never be crushed, can never be lost, and is always available. Does anybody have any questions? Does anyone have any questions at all? We've maybe got 5-10 minutes left. You're very, very welcome. I'm so glad it's helpful. It's my honour to offer it. So I'm so glad it's helped. But please, if there are any questions, if there are anything you would like to say or to feedback or to clarify, please do ask, because I think I've probably said the essence of what I wanted to offer you and to pass on to you. So if there are any things that you would like me to talk a little bit more about or to explain a little bit further, then we have time to do that. The gift of the inner child. The gift of the inner child is wholeness. Okay, a question. Janny, I feel the void when I move into grief. Is that because I am disconnecting from my inner child? Yes. Because if we rewind, our inner child knows that there is no separation. Our inner child knows that we are forever connected. And therefore, while we can experience missing, we never feel desolate and alone, because we know we walk with thousands who have always known us, who have always loved us, including the person we have lost, and that we know we can always plug in and always connect. And I just want to, before I lose it, what do we call the part of ourselves that is so deeply hurt by things that happened in our childhood? If we were to put a name to it, really it's the part of ourself. It's the part of ourself that came for the adventure. It's the part of ourself that has suffered amnesia, who no longer remembers who we really are, that is the part that is hurt. And yes, I will do another session on healing the inner child. Clearly, this is helpful and warrants more than one session. I was aware of that. I'm trying to sort of give a taster of so many different things, but I realise that each individual element warrants almost a session in its own right. But I would try and say that the inner child is the part that always remembers, and the part that is hurt is the part that is forgotten. It's the part that is forgotten. And again, so if the inner child is our divine love energy, it is our life purpose to be one with it, yes. Yes, because as we continue spiritually to become awakened, we do become one with it. Part of the process of awakening is integrating that self back, because the journey of spiritual awakening is a journey of remembering. It's a journey of remembering, and the inner child never forgets. But it is necessary in order to have the growth and the adventure to forget. And so the part of us that walks the rockier path and the more difficult path actually knew before birth that it would forget, knew that there is a process of amnesia that is necessary to get the full experience that will lead to the growth we came for. If you think about it, let's give an example about the importance of amnesia. So if we, I don't know, let's say we'd gone camping and we had been told that we'd got to stay in that tent, we'd got to stay there no matter what for a full fortnight. And that fortnight there is nothing but rain. There is nothing but rain. We get soaked and it's uncomfortable, we can't get our clothes dry, water is seeping in through the lining of the tent, there are rain beetles and goodness knows what. It is awful, it's just awful. But we believe that we can't leave. And so we stick it out. And we experience all that rain and the wind and the rain beetles and the soggy clothing and the wet feet and all of that. We experience it all. And through that, we go through a series of stages of emotion and experience from which we grow. Now, if we knew that the minute it started to rain, we could just pick up our tent and go back, which is the equivalent of we never forget who we really are, well, there wouldn't be an adventure and there wouldn't be a journey, and there would certainly be no challenge, because the minute there was a challenge, because we remembered that we could leave at any time, how would that work? This lifetime's adventure only works because of amnesia. Exactly like being in the tent when it's raining and not realising that you can pack the tent up and go home. There's a lot of thinking that says we come and go out of our body all the time. Certainly people who are near death leave their body and come back all the time. And so nothing is as fixed as we think. But most of us decide that we're going to stick it out and we will go through that amnesia, knowing that our inner child is always there, either within us or holding those parts safe for us until we're ready to welcome them back. Yes, another question. And this process of awakening may take place in different scenarios on Earth as in some other worlds. Yeah, because the universe, the cosmos, reality is huge and unbounded, and we come and go. A very different kind of way of thinking about the inner child, and I just have to say it is my way of thinking about the inner child, and there are many ways, and at no point am I saying this is the only way, but it's the way that makes sense to me. It's the way that I work as a psychotherapist and as a healer. And it is a way that I see working for many people. When we cease to think of our inner child as broken, when we cease to see our inner child as being a victim, and we realise that it is us temporarily without our inner child that feels broken, that feels fearful and like a victim, then we turn everything on its head and everything makes a different kind of sense. And there is a way back to empowerment and to our inner knowing and remembering who we really are. Let's never forget how powerful we really are. Not in a grandiose, bigged up kind of way, but as part of a field of energy of infinite intelligence and infinite creative power, because that's who we have to be, because where can we be to be something other than that? There is nowhere else to be. At the quantum level, we are all energy vibrating, part of one field of energy. You can't be outside that energy. There is nowhere else to be. There is nowhere else to be. So never forget what a powerful being you are. Never forget where you come from. Never forget what is available to you. Never forget what you've got. Never forget. And if you do find yourself forgetting, think again of what we've talked about today, and know that there is always a way to become whole again. You are never without help. You are never without the possibility of healing. Healing is integrating back. Healing is the journey back to wholeness. Healing is becoming whole again. May you find yourself on that journey back to wholeness. May you learn to listen to and hear and feel the presence of and trust your inner child, who has been on this journey with you all along. And enjoy the tea and cake along the way. So much love. Talk again soon. Thank you for your company. Bye for now.